Welcome, friends, to my channel, Recap Stories. Today, we'll talk about an interesting tale that begins in a deserted desert, where there's not a soul in sight. Here we see a man named Yunus, who appears to be in a great hurry, frequently looking back, as if someone might be following him or he's scared of something. He stops his car near a hill, grabs a bag, and starts climbing to the top. Once there, he digs a hole with a hatchet and buries the bag. We catch a glimpse of what might be dollars inside, though it's not certain. After burying it, he heads back down and tries to drive away, but just then, the police arrive. They had been trailing him for a while, as Yunus had robbed a bank, so they arrest him and he is sentenced to 3 years in prison. Upon his release, Yunus notices many changes in the city. But first, he heads straight for the same hill where he buried his bag to retrieve it. When he arrives and gets out of the taxi, he's shocked. Where he had buried the bag, there's now a shrine that people revere deeply. He sees a crowd gathered, and wonders if anyone discovered his bag or if it's still hidden. Hoping for the best, he climbs the hill and finds people of different faiths who believe that visiting this shrine can heal their illnesses. Yunus also notices that a small village has sprung up nearby, which wasn't there before. He goes down and looks for a place to stay for a few days, eventually finding a hotel, but he doesn't have enough money to pay. The hotel owner declines his request, but just then, a man named Salim, who is also staying at the hotel, sees Yunus in trouble and covers his payment, asking him to return the money in his room. Yunus agrees and goes to his room. Later, Salim meets him again and asks, "Are you here for treatment?" Annoyed, Yunus replies, "Why are you asking me so many questions?" Salim explains that he thought Yunus might be unwell. Yunus reassures him that he's perfectly fine and says he's actually searching for something. Salim then says, "Oh, so you're a sage." Yunus plays along, agreeing with Salim's assumption. In another town, we see a father and son, Salman and Hassan, who work as farmers. Hassan approaches his father and suggests they eat. Salman notices a bag next to Hassan and asks where it came from. Hassan explains that a friend who's leaving the village gave it to him. Salman then returns to the field and tells Hassan that he'll be home shortly. Meanwhile, we see another taxi stop near the mountain, from which a man named Kalam steps out. Kalam has come to see the shrine and then heads toward the village. He stops outside a clinic, as he is a doctor, recently assigned to this post. An old man gestures for him to come inside and says everyone has been waiting for him. The old man shows him his room, which is small and messy, disappointing Kalam. That night, a man sits outside the shrine with his dog, seemingly guarding it. Yunus sneaks up the mountain from a hidden path, but just then, another stranger arrives, intending to steal the coins people have left at the shrine. Yunus becomes suspicious, thinking the man might be the guard. He decides to attack him, but when people begin approaching after hearing his shout, he quickly descends the mountain. In the morning, Hassan's father, Salman, tells him that he heard on the radio that clouds are expected to gather over their village this time, and it might rain. Hassan responds, saying they hear this every year, yet it's been 10 years without rain. He calls the place cursed and suggests they should leave. Meanwhile, the shrine's caretaker, Aziz, sends his daughter to work as he finishes his duties. Yunus then visits a barber shop, where he sees Salim, the same man who paid his hotel bill. Salim tells Barber that Yunus is a researcher, searching for something specific. The barber begins cutting Yunus's hair, and Aziz, the shrine's caretaker, enters. Salim praises Aziz as a hero, prompting Aziz to recount a story. He describes how another man had once come down from the mountain, but he wasn't able to catch him. Aziz explains that he did manage to rough up the thief, and listeners commend his bravery. Outside, Yunus makes a call, telling someone to come as he needs them urgently. Elsewhere, Kalam prepares for his first day at the clinic. Shortly after, his first patient arrives and smiles at him. Kalam asks her what the issue is, and she tells him she's had a headache for 20 years. His assistant gives her a yellow pill and tells her to leave. Shortly after, another patient arrives with the peculiar ailment of coughing only on Tuesdays and Fridays. Hearing this, Kalam is astonished at how such a thing could be. But again, the assistant hands her the same yellow pill and sends her off. Kalam finds it odd that only women come to the clinic, no male patients are seen. Curious, he steps outside and notices that, indeed, only women are present. They smile at him, which he finds very strange. Confused, Kalam goes back inside and asks his assistant if no men get sick in this place. The assistant replies that any who fall ill go to the shrine to be healed. The women, on the other hand, come to the clinic just to pass the time since there was no doctor before. This revelation frustrates Kalam, who had come to the village hoping to grow as a doctor, but now feels like he's being mocked. Later, we see Hassan telling his father that he can't bear living here anymore. His father replies that he's free to leave but warns him not to betray the land of his ancestors. Hassan asks his father to come with him, but Salman turns away, indicating he won't go. The following night, Yunus is seen with a friend, devising a plan to retrieve the bag from the shrine. His friend has already started climbing the mountain. Yunus calls him, warning him not to climb yet. But the friend says he's already at the designated spot, meaning someone else is ascending the mountain. Meanwhile, Aziz goes to use the restroom, and Yunus secretly swaps his bread with a loaf laced with sedatives. Another man then climbs up and steals the shrine's signboard. When Aziz returns and finds the board missing, he immediately calls the police. Seeing this, Yunus tells his friend to cancel the plan, as the police are now involved. Aziz eats the drugged bread, and so does his dog, causing both of them to pass out. Kalam, bored by watching the same TV channel repeatedly, goes to his assistant, who is dressed in black. Kalam invites him in and sees the stolen shrine signboard on the assistant's bed, realizing why the police came. However, Kalam reassures him that he won't tell anyone. The assistant, in a somber tone, reveals that he's tired of life. He explains that he was testing the shrine's caretaker's vigilance but ended up losing to an elderly man. Hearing this, Kalam laughs inwardly, realizing what kind of place he's ended up in. The next day, when Aziz goes out to shave, people look at him with anger rather than the usual joy. Meanwhile, Salman takes a friend to the field and tells him they need to do something to appease God's wrath so that it will rain. Meanwhile, Yunus's friend visits the shrine and notices a woman using coin water on her mother's feet, which causes her to start walking again. Seeing this, Yunus's friend believes that this truly is a miraculous shrine. Returning, Yunus tells his friend that they need to act quickly or it will be too late. His friend asks if it's true that Yunus hid money there, because people believe there's a miracle happening. Yunus denies it, saying there's no miracle, it's just people's fabricated stories. He confirms that his money is hidden there, and they just need to do something about Aziz and his dog. Yunus's friend suggests killing both of them, but Yunus warns that if they do, the police will catch them immediately, and it would be the biggest foolishness. They need to be careful and think things through. The next day, Yunus's friend is driving when he sees Aziz's son with his goats, followed by Aziz's dog. Without any hesitation, he runs over Aziz's son with the car. This news spreads throughout the village, and people return Aziz's dog to him, which makes Aziz extremely angry. He slaps his daughter in frustration, but others explain that it was just an accident with the car. A kind man suggests that they take the dog to the clinic, and they all head to Clam's place, where treatment begins. Upon hearing about the accident, Yunus scolds his friend, saying he has done something terribly wrong, and now the entire village will be on alert, especially since there have already been 2 thefts at the shrine. His friend reassures him, saying he has hidden the car and no one saw him, so he shouldn't worry. At the clinic, Clam tells Aziz that he has saved his dog's life but warns him that only 2 days are left, so he must be careful and avoid feeding the dog anything too harsh. Aziz is grateful and takes his dog home. The scene shifts, and we see Hassan sitting with his father in the fields. An old friend of Salman is leaving the village, and Hassan goes to meet him. Salman, however, turns away because he doesn't like the idea of leaving the village. After they leave, Salman tells his daughter that it used to rain here, but ever since the tomb was discovered, the entire village has been cursed. Hassan responds, saying not to blame someone else for your failure. That night, Yunus and his friend prepare to go to the shrine again, but they see the same woman who had been in a wheelchair walking on her own. This shocks Yunus's friend, but due to time constraints, they leave immediately and see that Aziz is alone that night. However, Yunus's friend expresses doubt, saying he doesn't feel right about this and that they should come back tomorrow. Yunus insists on leaving, but eventually, his friend agrees to go back. The next day, Salman takes a hammer to destroy the shrine, but people stop him. That night, Hassan brings food to his father, saying he hasn't eaten all day. Salman doesn't respond. Hassan thinks he's angry, so he leaves the food and steps out. The next morning, Hassan finds the food untouched and becomes worried about his father. He calls out to him, but there is no answer. Hassan thinks his father might be missing his friend, so he tells the village friends and heads home with them. Aziz's friend, upon seeing Salman's condition, is confused about what's really going on. The story progresses as Aziz visits a barber for help with his dog's teeth. The barber says he only works with gold teeth, but Aziz promises to arrange the money and requests that the barber makes the teeth. Aziz agrees, and that night, he brings the broken teeth and money to the barber. Since there's a shortfall, Aziz promises to sell his land and pay the rest. A few days later, Aziz goes to the doctor, Clam, who installs the gold teeth. The villagers praise Clam for his work when they see it. One night, Aziz ties his dog outside and goes to sleep. However, he becomes worried about the gold teeth, fearing they might be stolen. So, he brings the dog inside and guards it. The next day, Hassan returns to his father's room and finds out that Salman died from starvation. He buries his father in the fields. One day, Yunus notices there is no guard at the shrine, so he heads there. However, frightened by the lightning, he comes down and says he'll return the next day. Time passes. The next morning, Hassan prepares to leave the village. He says his final goodbye to his father, but as it begins to rain, he becomes emotional and starts crying, as his father had always wished for rain. Hassan returns home and decides not to leave the village. The following night, Hassan goes to the shrine and sets up a bomb with wires leading to a detonator. Yunus arrives just as he opens the door, and the wires ignite, causing a loud explosion that destroys everything. Hassan returns and finds that the shrine has been obliterated, but he discovers a bag in the ground. When he opens it, he finds Yunus's hidden money. Just then, he hears police sirens, so he grabs the bag and runs away. When Yunus regains consciousness and hears the police, he descends from the shrine. At home, Hassan opens the bag and finds millions of rupees. He's stunned and ponders what to do with the money. The scene cuts, and we see that Hassan has built a similar shrine on his father's grave, believing that it's his father's blessing that has brought rain back to the village. Slowly, the people who had left the village begin to return. Here's the rewritten English version of your message with alternatives for each word as requested. Let us know in the comments below how you found the story. I kindly request you to help me reach 10,000 subscribers on my channel soon. We hope that you all enjoy this video, and we encourage you to like it. Please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for your kind comments, and we'll see you in the next video.